They fined me $200 for unauthorized lawn activity after my son's toy sprinkler left a ring of damp grass near the mailbox. That notice hit on a Thursday, 3 days after I buried my father, who taught me to respect every inch of soil we owned. Welcome to Auntie Karen. I'm Daniel, a 42-year-old civil engineer out of Denton, Texas. I'm not an influencer, I just believe in fairness and property rights. If you're new here, I'd appreciate a quick subscribe. It helps me reach neighbors who've been pushed too far. And tell me where you're watching from. I always read those first. Dad's house had been the last promise I made to him. Keep the land clean, keep it in the family, and don't let anyone bully the community the way developers once bullied him out of his hardware store lot back in '89. I kept the workshop lights on even after he passed, fixing tools for neighbors, sharpening mower blades. The sound of that grinder was my therapy. The HOA president, Karen Dillard, didn't see it that way. She saw the shed lights and the coming and going of locals as unauthorized commerce. She once said to my face, "Daniel, this isn't a swap meet, it's a planned community." She said planned like a knife, implying my father's handmade fence was chaos incarnate. I paid that $1,200 fine under protest just to keep things calm while sorting the estate, but they didn't stop. Next came the warning about non-standard mailbox color. It was beige. Then a $75 fee for leaving the trash cans visible for 22 minutes past the 6 p.m. rule. 22 minutes. I timed it. It's hard to explain the humiliation of writing a check for something so small. My wife Clara told me to let it go. But every time I heard that mailbox lid clang, it felt like they were reaching into my father's pocket. So I did what I know best. I started measuring. Every inch of setback, every code clause. I bought a touch re-ring binder, labeled Covenants Bylaws, Lakewind HOA 1999 revision, and printed the full document from the county site. I highlighted every section they'd misquoted. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, HOAs can't impose or collect fines unless the violation procedures exactly match the notice and hearing rules in Chapter 209 of the Property Code. Miss one certified letter and the fine's void. That night, I noticed half the citations they'd issued never went through certified mail. It was like finding cracks in a dam. I started logging every envelope, date, and missing signature line. My neighbor Gus, a retired code inspector, saw me one evening in the driveway under the floodlight flipping through the binder. "You're auditing them, aren't you?" he said, chuckling with his wheezy smoker's laugh. "Just remember, paper beats gavel." He was right. Next HOA meeting, I asked for copies of financials, citing our right to inspect under Section 209-005. Karen smiled that brittle smile, the kind you see on realtors before a lowball offer. "Our books are clean," she said. "We have nothing to hide." 3 days later, I received another notice, this time about soil erosion visible from the street. My guess, the patch where they'd torn up my front strip to install a community flower bed. That's when I started to dig, not in dirt, but in deeds. I found the parcel maps in the Denton County Clerk's archive, the kind printed on heavy cream paper with faint pencil notations along the right-of-way lines. Lot 14B, mine, had a 6-foot drainage easement that predated the HOA's founding by 11 years, meaning any landscaping violation along that strip was outside their jurisdiction. They'd been fining me for land they didn't even control. When I mentioned this to Gus, he whistled low. "You just found yourself a loaded chamber, son." I nodded, but didn't celebrate. Not yet. The next board meeting, I waited until new business. Karen's voice echoed through the rec hall mic. "Mr. Fenton, you've been cited 3 times this month. Would you like to respond?" "Yes," I said, standing. "But first, can we review the legal description of 14B? Her eyes flickered. She wasn't used to anyone quoting Platt language. "We're not here for survey disputes," she said. "Then why do you keep fining me for the easement your HOA doesn't own?" The room murmured. I saw 2 neighbors lift their phones, recording quietly. Karen leaned toward the mic, sharp as glass. "Daniel, if you want to play lawyer, get one." I already had. That night I called Renee Wu, a real estate attorney in Dallas known for taking on HOA abuse cases. She had a habit of tapping her pen 3 times before giving bad news. "They've overreached," she said after reviewing my files. "But overreach isn't enough. You'll need leverage, something that makes them come to you." Her words stuck. Leverage. Early in the morning, I walked the neighborhood loop, jotting addresses. I counted 137 homes. HOA dues, $78 per month. That's $10,686 every month into their account, supposedly for maintenance, lighting, and landscaping. But I'd noticed the streetlights hadn't been replaced in over a year, and the landscaper's truck hadn't shown since February. Where was the money going? I filed a certified request for their last 2 years of bank statements and contracts, citing state open record rights for members. Karen ignored it. 2 weeks later, I sent another, by certified mail, return receipt requested. They responded with a $300 frivolous request fine. It was almost funny. They fined me for asking where the fines were going. That night, Clara asked, "Are we sure this is worth it? They're turning the neighbors against you." "I'm not fighting for me," I said. "I'm fighting for Dad's land. If I stop, they win by default." By mid-March, I had a thick folder labeled Violations Log, HOA Board Misconduct. Gus helped me cross-check contractor licenses. One name jumped out, Kendrick Envy. Iron Mental LLC paid $48,000 for beautification projects, except there was no such registered business in Texas. Renee's voice tightened when I told her, "That's laundering or self-dealing. Either way, it's gold. Keep your mouth shut until you can prove the connection." That same week, Karen escalated. She filed a community disturbance complaint claiming I was harassing board members. A deputy knocked on my door at 8:14 p.m. The man apologized before even speaking. "Sir, I'm required to log this call, but between you and me, this sounds like an HOA spat." I thanked him, took his card, and added the incident report number to my binder. Knowledge nugget number 2. Texas Penal Code 37.08 defines false report to a peace officer as a Class B misdemeanor. That detail would matter later. Early the next morning, while walking to the curb with coffee, I saw Karen across the street taking pictures of my lawn. I waved. She snapped 3 more and walked off. That's when I decided to build my own kind of insurance. "Gus," I said that afternoon, "you still have that dash cam you mounted on your mailbox?" He grinned. "Got 3 of them. You want coverage?" "Yeah," I said. "Full perimeter. Time-stamped." I wasn't recording for drama. I was documenting for survival. For anyone watching this who's dealt with an HOA before, are you anti-HOA, or do you think they can still serve a purpose if run fairly? If you've ever been hit with a bogus violation, share how you handled it below so others can learn your tactics. And if any HOA board members are listening, the comment section's open. Say your piece, because the rest of us sure will. By the first week of April, the air felt heavier, humid with spring storms. The HOA posted new community standard flyers on every door. No unapproved structures. No yard work before 9 a.m. No gatherings over 6 people without permit. 6 people. That line made my blood run cold. My father's annual memorial cookout always drew 20 or more. It was tradition. They wanted to erase him from the calendar. I had no idea that by 7:05 the cops would already be outside. I saw the red and blue strobes bouncing off the clubhouse windows as I pulled in. 2 patrol cars idled by the curb. The rain had stopped, leaving the asphalt slick and black. Inside, through the glass doors, Karen stood behind a folding table, arms crossed, looking like she'd already won. "Mr. Fenton," one of the officers said as I stepped out, "we had a call about a potential disturbance. You mind telling me what's going on tonight?" "Community meeting," I said, lifting the evidence box. "I'm here to speak under the open member section. Everything's lawful." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right, sir. Just keep it civil." Inside smelled like old coffee and carpet glue. About 40 neighbors sat in rows of metal chairs. Karen cleared her throat into the mic. "Before we begin," she said, "I want everyone to know the HOA board reserves the right to remove any disruptive individuals. We've had issues lately with baseless accusations." Her eyes met mine. I placed the box on a chair beside me. Clara sat in the back, hands folded tight. Gus gave a small nod from 2 rows ahead. The meeting rolled through minutes, budgets, landscaping complaints. Then Karen opened the floor. "Yes, I said, standing. "I have a matter of public record to present." She sighed audibly. 2 minutes, Mr. Fenton." I lifted the certified document, its embossed seal catching the fluorescent light. "This," I said, "is the deed showing that the retention basin and surrounding 10-foot easement belong to the city of Denton, not the HOA. You've been collecting dues and issuing fines on land you don't own." A hush rippled through the room. Karen laughed once, sharp. "That's a misunderstanding. We've maintained that parcel for years." "On paper," I said, flipping the next sheet, "you claimed city reimbursement for my maintenance costs while simultaneously billing homeowners for the same. That's called unjust enrichment. And this check," I held up the one made to Lone Spur LLC, "was paid to a vendor the board never vetted, operating under my control. You approved it." The color drained from her face. "This is ridiculous," she said, but her voice quivered. "You entrapped us." "I followed your procurement policy exactly," I said evenly. "No entrapment, just compliance." The room buzzed, neighbors whispering, some recording. The officer at the door leaned forward slightly, arms folded. Knowledge nugget number 4. In Texas, HOA boards must disclose conflicts and maintain accurate records. Failure to do so can void their indemnity protections and expose individual board members to personal liability. I looked around the room. "You've fined this community nearly $80,000 over 5 years. You've threatened families, filed false police reports, and lied about your finances. I'm asking for a full audit, immediate suspension of all fines, and Karen Dillard's resignation pending review." Someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole back row. Karen slammed the gavel. "This meeting is adjourned," she shouted. But the officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, you can't adjourn a meeting that's still in public session," he said calmly. "I'm here to ensure transparency. Let the man finish." The air crackled. Karen froze, staring at him. "You're interfering in HOA business." "Not if it involves criminal misuse of funds," he said. "Carry on, Mr. Fenton." That was the first time I saw her falter completely. I set down the deed, the check copy, and my binder log on the table, clicking the latch shut on the evidence box. "From this point," I said, "everything's being submitted to the City Ethics Board and the State Property Code Enforcement Office. You've overstepped your legal boundaries and misled the community, but we can fix this, if you cooperate." Half the room was on its feet now. Gus turned around, grinning through the noise. "Paper beats gavel, told you." Outside, rain began again, soft and steady, like punctuation. "Now tell me, what's fair punishment for HOA officials who weaponize power? Should they face fines, removal, or criminal charges? Drop your verdict in the comments. I'm curious what accountability looks like where you live." Karen didn't respond that night. She just left through the side door while her vice president tried to calm the crowd. I stayed behind, stacking my papers, feeling a strange mix of victory and dread, because leverage isn't freedom, it's responsibility. The next morning I woke to 37 emails from neighbors offering support and one certified letter taped to my door. It read, "Notice of intent to foreclose for non-payment of assessments." I held that letter in my hands for a long time, tracing the embossed return address with my thumb. It wasn't shock anymore. It was calculation. They were doubling down, hoping fear would do what reason couldn't. But I'd lived through engineers' layoffs and Dad's funeral. Fear didn't stick the way it used to. I took photos of every page, scanned the envelope, and logged the date and time. Then I called Renee. "They're threatening foreclosure now," I said. She paused. "Without a court order? That's reckless. They can't even file unless assessments are 90 days overdue." "I'm current," I said. "They're bluffing." "Then make them pay for it," she said. "We'll file a preemptive petition to quiet title, stop them cold." So that's what we did. On May 24th, Fenton v. Lakewind, HOA, hit the county docket. It wasn't about money, it was about freezing their ability to retaliate. I paid the $223 filing fee with a crisp check and a quiet kind of satisfaction. But retaliation took other forms. 3 nights later, my porch light flickered out, wires cleanly cut at the junction. Then came a courtesy inspection from code enforcement, mysteriously tipped off, about potential unlicensed electrical work. The inspector, a kind man named Ernesto, looked embarrassed. Off the record, he said, someone's trying to weaponize the system. Just keep documentation. I'll note no violation found. By the end of that week, my mailbox overflowed with anonymous HOA newsletters. Disgruntled resident endangering property values. They printed my name bold. Clara tore one up at the kitchen counter. They're trying to humiliate you. Let them, I said. It's evidence now. Every morning, I'd photograph the lawn from the same 3 angles, time-stamped. Every evening, I'd scan the mailbox before touching a single envelope. Gus called it my forensic routine. I called it insurance. Then came the night someone rang the bell at 11:47 p.m. and vanished. Just the echo of gravel under tires. Clara wanted to call the police. I told her we'd wait until they slipped, because they always do. For anyone watching who's lived this kind of harassment, how do you think communities should handle it? Public exposure or private mediation? Should neighbors name names when power gets abused, or stay silent to avoid escalation? Let me know below. It matters more than views. On June 2nd, Renee called with a grin I could hear through the phone. They filed a response. Good or bad? Both, she said. Bad for them. They attached the wrong exhibit, an unsigned lien form. And guess who notarized it? Who? Karen's husband. Conflict of interest. That voids the instrument. I almost dropped the phone laughing. Reversal number 1 was fully alive now. The HOA's foreclosure threat relied on a lien that didn't legally exist. I didn't announce it. I just filed the evidence under seal and let the timer tick. The hearing was set for July 8th, 9 o'clock a.m. That gave them a month to dig their own hole. Gus and I kept quiet, mowing lawns and waving at neighbors like nothing had changed. Every day felt like the slow tightening of a ratchet. Still, there were nights when it got to me. The quiet kind of fear that hums behind your ribs. Once I woke to Clara sitting by the window watching the street. I don't like how still it is, she said softly. Me neither, I admitted, but it's almost over. We both watched the porch light reflect on the stack of legal envelopes by the door, yellow and cold. I made a vow that night. If I won, I wouldn't just clear my name. I'd fix this neighborhood so no one else had to fight like this again. That's when I began drafting something new, a proposal for open board elections, independent audits, and a term limit clause. Not revenge, reform. And when I sealed that envelope with the proposal inside, it felt like armor. By the time July rolled in, the cicadas were screaming through the heat, the air thick with anticipation. The courthouse steps gleamed in the morning sun as I climbed them, binder under one arm. The gavel was waiting. The courtroom smelled faintly of toner and floor wax. A ceiling fan turned slow above the judge's bench, slicing the humid July air into lazy circles. Karen sat at the respondent's table, pearl earrings, hair lacquered, trying to project calm but fidgeting with her legal pad. Beside her was the HOA's counsel, Mark Dunleavy, a man whose tie looked more expensive than his ethics. Judge Holloway, gray beard trimmed to regulation length, flipped through the pleadings. All right, he said. We're here on Fenton versus Lakewind Homeowners Association, case 220794. Mr. Fenton, you're self-represented? Yes, Your Honor, I said, standing straight. With limited advisory counsel. Renee sat a few rows back, silent, nodding once. Very well, proceed. I handed the clerk Exhibit A, the voided lien, notarized by the president's husband. Your Honor, the HOA filed an invalid instrument to justify foreclosure in violation of Property Code 209.0092, and the notary lacks independence. The document lacks a signature. The underlying debt is contested. They've committed abuse of process. Dunleavy rose, smoothing his tie. Judge, my client acted in good faith. These homeowners frequently— Save it, Holloway interrupted. You're defending a ghost lien notarized by a spouse. That's an ethics problem, not a paperwork error. Karen's pen stopped tapping. I continued, voice steady. We're seeking injunctive relief and verification of all lien filings from 2018 to present. Additionally, an audit of assessment collections under Section 82.114 of the Uniform Condominium Act, which this HOA has adopted by reference. The judge scribbled a note. You came prepared, Mr. Fenton? I'm an engineer, sir, I said. We document everything. He smiled faintly. So do judges. By 10:04 a.m., the gavel struck once. Preliminary injunction granted. Lakewind HOA is prohibited from initiating foreclosure or further collection action pending audit. I'm ordering a court-appointed CPA to review the books within 30 days. That was the sound of a whole machine grinding to a halt. Outside, the heat hit like a wall. Renee caught up to me on the steps. "You just pulled their teeth, Daniel. They can't move money, can't fine, can't foreclose." "I know," I said. "Now we let the clock run out." Visual beat number 1. On my truck's tailgate, I laid the injunction papers beside the old HOA violation letters. The seal gleamed gold against the dull pink of those fines. I snapped a photo for my records, a still moment of proof that paper, when wielded right, cuts deeper than rage. For viewers who've fought HOAs or any authority misusing power, how would you strike back? Buy leverage quietly, or go to court head-on? Drop your thoughts. The community reads every comment, and some of you teach me more than law school ever could. Back home, neighbors waved differently. One woman brought over cookies for courage, she said. Even the mailman offered a quiet, "Nice job, sir." The air had shifted. Karen, though, wasn't done. Within days, she called a special emergency meeting to propose new covenants to restore order. She wanted to ratify them before the audit could expose the finances. So I stayed quiet. Because leverage is like dynamite. You don't throw it, you set it where it counts. Through Lone Spur LLC, I still held that landscaping contract. Payment suspended but active, which meant I technically controlled access to the basin lot, the same parcel their sign sat on. And the renewal clause? It gave me the right to revoke access with 30 days' notice. I drafted the letter that night. Effective August 1st, Lone Spur LLC will exercise its right to terminate all maintenance access to Parcel 17C due to non-payment and misrepresentation of ownership. I didn't send it yet. I wanted an audience. The annual summer HOA barbecue, attendance mandatory for board members, was July 30th. That would be my stage. As I sealed the envelope, I could almost hear Dad's voice again, steady and low. "Don't swing till you can end it with one hit." The wind picked up outside, hot and dry, whipping the flags along the street. My porch light flickered, but this time, I didn't fix it. I wanted them to know I was awake. The HOA barbecue fell on a Sunday, the kind of Texas afternoon where the heat feels personal. I wore jeans, a pressed shirt, and the same boots I'd worn to Dad's funeral, more armor than attire. The smell of charcoal drifted across the park, mixing with the sweet sting of cheap barbecue sauce. They'd set up folding tables under the gazebo near the retention basin. Karen stood by the raffle tent, greeting residents with that brittle hostess smile. When she saw me walking up, her expression flickered but reset fast. "Well, look who decided to be neighborly," she said. "Always was," I said, holding the envelope in plain view. The crowd buzzed around us. Kids chase, ink bubbles, someone's Bluetooth speaker sputtering out country music. I waited for her microphone moment. She climbed the steps of the gazebo, tapping the mic with a manicured nail. "Everyone," she said brightly, "thank you for supporting Lakewind HOA's Community Day. Despite recent distractions, we remain a unified neighborhood." That word, unified, landed like grit between my teeth. I stepped forward. "Madam President, may I address the Assembly?" Gasps. Karen's jaw tightened. "Mr. Fenton, this isn't a meeting." "Sure it is," I said. "It's a quorum by attendance, and I have an operational notice to deliver." I held up the envelope. "As managing member of Lone Spur LLC, current contractor of record for the retention parcel, I hereby terminate the HOA's access rights effective August 1st, citing non-payment and misrepresentation of ownership. Copies filed with the city and the court." You could hear the microphone pick up her shallow breath. "You can't just," she started, but I cut her off, calm as steel. "Actually, I can. You signed the contract, remember? Same one that paid me to maintain city property your board doesn't own." Someone in the crowd laughed, one of those short, shocked laughs that breaks tension like glass. A reporter from the local paper, Maya Lopez, whom Renee had quietly tipped off, raised her camera. Flash. Another flash. Visual beat number 2. The moment froze, the envelope midair as I handed it to the officer standing nearby, his reflective sunglasses catching both our faces. The officer nodded. Delivery acknowledged on record. Karen stammered, voice trembling. You set us up." "No," I said, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "You set yourselves up when you weaponized power against homeowners. I just read the rulebook you ignored." The crowd murmured again. Gus called from the back. "Tell him about the audit." I smiled slight. "Shali. Oh, right. The court-appointed CPA's report drops this Friday. Preliminary numbers show $32,000 in unaccounted administrative expenses. That's coming out next." Karen's vice president quietly stepped away from her side. The officer leaned closer. "Ma'am," he said, low but firm, "for your awareness, if any documents were falsified or funds misused, you'll be hearing from city investigators." She went pale, then motionless. When I looked around, neighbors weren't whispering anymore. They were watching, faces lit by that rare blend of justice and disbelief. "Board resignation forms," I said, "are on the picnic table by the sign-in sheet. You can step down gracefully before the audit goes public." No one moved for a moment. Then one of the board members, Trevor, the treasurer, walked over, took a pen, and signed. The sound of the ballpoint scratching paper echoed across the lawn. Karen turned away, shoulders slumped, muttering something about lawyers. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady, like the world had shifted back to true north for a second. If you've ever seen power unravel this fast, how should those people make it right? Step down quietly, or face public charges? Write what accountability means to you in the comments, or at least like the video so it reaches more folks who need courage to push back. As the crowd thinned and the sun dipped low, the retention basin sign still gleamed behind me, letters casting long shadows over the grass. By nightfall, the HOA website was down. By morning, 3 board members had resigned. And by Friday, when the CPA's audit hit the city portal, Lakewind HOA wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was evidence. The audit landed like a hammer. 42 pages, stamped and certified. Out of $128,600 in collected dues, nearly half had been spent without receipts, payments routed through the same shell account that matched the fake contractor name, Kendrick Environmental LLC. The address? Karen's cousin's house in Plano. Local news picked it up by noon. Lakewind HOA faces fraud investigation following homeowner complaint. Maya's headline was concise, brutal, and fair. By sunset, a city ethics investigator and 2 uniformed officers walked into the community office and left with file boxes. I stood on my porch across the street, the air still, the smell of cut grass heavy and sweet. Karen was there, in a dark dress, watching them carry her legacy out in bankers' boxes. For the first time, I felt almost sorry for her. Almost. The next week was a blur of calls. The insurance carrier froze the HOA's fidelity bond. The management company severed ties. A temporary receiver was appointed by the court. Holloway's injunction became a consent decree. And then came the letter that mattered most. Dear Mr. Fenton, based on your petition and the community's vote, a reform charter has been approved effective immediately. That was reversal number 2. The charter mandated open meetings, transparent budgets, 2-term limits, and an independent ethics committee chosen by residents. It wasn't vengeance. It was architecture. I'd taken their broken system and drafted it back into function. Gus knocked on my door the morning after the vote, holding a thermos. "You really did it," he said, voice rough. "We did," I corrected. "Every neighbor who stopped being scared." He laughed, that same wheezy sound, and raised his coffee like a toast. Visual beat number 3. I took the old violation letters, creased, coffee-stained, symbols of everything wrong, and dropped them one by one into Dad's metal fire pit out back. The paper curled, flames licking up the yellow ink until only ash and the faint scent of toner remained. Before I go, if you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future stories reach you first. And if you know someone living under the thumb of a bad board, share this so they see what LA awful pushback can look like. We owe each other that much. When the smoke cleared, Clara stepped onto the porch beside me. "So what now?" she asked. "Now," I said. "We build something better." I walked to the workshop, turned on the old grinder and cut a small brass plate. Fenton Community Workshop, open to all. Screwed it to the fence with Dad's screwdriver. The vibration hummed through my hands, steady and familiar. A week later, the new board held its first public meeting. Kids played in the grass while the sun went down over the lake. The new treasurer read the budget aloud, every line projected on a portable screen. Applause broke out when someone mentioned the scholarship fund for neighborhood trade students, funded by restitution from the old board's insurance payout. And me? I just sat in the back, hands folded, listening to the sound of a community remembering what it means to be neighbors again. The news segment aired that night, closing with a shot of the same street sign from the barbecue, now polished and repainted, lit by the new solar lamp the city had installed. The reporter's voice summed it up perfectly. In Lakewind, transparency isn't just a policy, it's the new normal. As the credits rolled, I shut off the TV and stared at the porch light flickering against the window. For once, I didn't reach for tools or paperwork. I just let it flicker. Because sometimes the best kind of justice is quiet. And somewhere out there, another HOA thinks they're untouchable.